Hello class, Mr. Hurdle, coming back again with some more geography. I hope you enjoy that first slide. Get a little chuckle out of his eyes. That's from SNL. And have fun answering that question because it's a bit of a stumper, in my opinion. Today we're going to be talking about some geographical terms, and we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, the 5 themes of geography. Oh yeah, fun stuff. I'm just going to be going for you visual learners, working through these geography terms. And then from there, we'll take a look at the 5 themes of geography. So I'm just going to go through these terms here, and as I go, it might give you a little visual and help you study for the exam. It may be helpful to make flashcards. Probably a lot of these terms I would assume you've heard at some point. You may just need to be reminded a bit. So I will start in alphabetical order with an archipelago. An archipelago has a hard C there. It's a group or chain of many islands, so a bunch of islands put together. Next, down by the bay, there we go, is a bay, is a small area of sea or lake, partially enclosed by dry land. And if you can tell, that is a lovely San Francisco Bay. A butte is an isolated rocky hill or mountain with a small flat top. Ain't that a butte, Clark? If you can get that, you get a high five from me if you get that reference. If not, you're probably asking yourself, what the heck is he talking about? Next is a canyon, a deep, steep-sided narrow valley. Small versions of these are chasms, that's a hard C, gorges, or ravines. A cape, a fairly large piece of land extending into a body of water. Small capes are often called points or spits. Bet you didn't know that. You may think maybe Cape Canaveral, Florida, you maybe heard about that, launching the space shuttle, stuff like that. A cataract, a large dramatic waterfall that plunges down from a high overhanging precipice. A cataract is basically a fancy name for a big waterfall. You may have heard the term cataract before. Maybe you knew somebody that was a bit older, maybe they had surgery on their eye called a cataract. And it actually comes from the same word. Basically, it's cloudiness in the eye. So that cloudiness covers their eye, and it's actually pretty bad. And a lot of people have to have surgery on it when you have something like that. So if you're wondering, isn't that eye surgery or something like that? Yeah, they do have that in common. It just refers to the cloudiness, which obviously you can see in the waterfall. There's a lot of cloudiness as everything's falling down. A cavern, a large cave of room size or larger. Pretty simple. A cliff, a very steep or vertical slope. Don't fall off a cliff. Would be kind of cool to live in it, like this Native American dwelling here. A continental divide is a large mountain ridge that basically decides which way the rivers are going to flow. So if you're on this side of the Rockies versus this side, the rivers are going to flow a certain way. A continental shelf is the gently sloping margin of a continent submerged beneath the sea. So the shelf here is like if you're going to come out and you hopefully don't want Jaws to eat you. This is the continental shelf as you go out. And then the slope will cut down very quickly. So the shelf is this first part. Delta, the area of sediments formed at the mouth of a river. You may have heard of, maybe in 6th grade, the Nile Delta perhaps, or the Mississippi Delta or something like that. It's always associated with the mouth of a river. A desert is a barren land containing little or no vegetation. Remember the 2nd grade rule, you want to get dessert twice, so dessert has 2 S's and desert has only 1. This is a fun word to say. Fjord is a long, narrow inlet or arm of the ocean bordered by really high cliffs. So the ocean basically goes in between these high cliffs. It looks kind of Narnia-ish or Lord of the Rings or something like that. A foothill, this is a really tough one. Don't know if you can handle this. A foothill is a hill at the base of a mountain. Duh, easy. A gulf is a large inlet of ocean or sea that is partially surrounded by land. Think of like Gulf of Mexico, something like that. And island, very tough one here. This is a brain stumper. A piece of land completely surrounded by water. Like I said, a lot of these are kind of reviews, so you don't need to freak out. But just so we know, that's what an island is. Isthmus, which is kind of fun to say, so you can say it to yourself. Isthmus, you have to have a bit of a lisp when you say it, is a narrow strip of land that connects 2 larger areas of land and narrowly separates 2 large bodies of water. So if you think about the Corinthian isthmus, for instance, is famous isthmus in Greece. If you know the book Corinthians, it's written the town of Corinth. So it's a strip of land here, and then it connects these two larger bodies of land, and then you have the water on the outside on either side. That's called an isthmus. The mouth of a river or stream is essentially where it goes into a larger body of water. It could be possibly like the ocean, looks like an ocean here. It could be a stream going into a river. That's the definition of a mouth. A pass is a passage through or over a mountain or hilly region. Some people are big like 300 fans if you've seen that movie. The Pass of Thermopylae, which we'll talk about a little bit later this year, that's with the 300 Spartan soldiers guard against the Persians. Peninsula is a piece of land almost completely surrounded by water, so it just sticks out into the middle of some water. A plain is very plain and boring, a large, flat, or level area of land. A plateau is an elevated, mostly level area of land. Prairie is a specific type of grassland in the U.S. You think about your little prairie dog scurrying around, running around, all that fun stuff. So, prairie. A swamp is a marsh with trees, contains more water and deeper water than marshes. If you've seen Swamp People, that show, I think it's on Discovery Channel, something like that, you get the idea of a swamp. Go get some gators and some gumbo and all that good stuff. A strait, a narrow body of water connecting two larger bodies of water. Now, when you get to this one, you might think for yourself, I kind of know what the opposite of a strait is, because I just did it a few slides ago. And if you're thinking in your smarty pants, you can think the opposite of a strait is a, what? It's an isthmus, right? An isthmus is land that is surrounded by water. This one is two big parts of water that are connected by a little piece of water that is surrounded by land. So if you think about that, a strait is essentially the opposite of an isthmus. Savannas, tropical grasslands, think of Mufasa, Lion King, all that good stuff. A steppe is basically a big treeless plain. It's similar kind of like to a prairie or something like that. They tend to be in Southeast Asia and Europe. Southeast Europe and in Asia as well. It's kind of a European version of it, or Asian. Tributaries are a bunch of little rivers that go and flow into a larger river. So if you look, this is a tributary, this is a tributary. They are all flowing into this big honking guy. You'll see stuff like this on the river trip as well. Tundra, a huge treeless plain bordering the Arctic Ocean. Think to yourself, is Arctic north or south? The answer is north, not south. That is the Antarctic. A valley. Valley is a long, narrow hollow in the surface lying between two higher areas, maybe Death Valley you've been to before. Pretty hot there. Name kind of gives it away a bit. Now, my favorite, the 5 themes of geography. And you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, I love that rap that I heard in class. So I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. The 5 themes are location, place, human environmental interactions, movement, and regions. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today for the rest of this lesson. Location. There are 2 parts to location. There is a relative location and absolute location. Relative location says where you are in relation to something else. So, for instance, this picture on the right. Little Red Riding Hood is in relation to the tree. She is, we'll say 10 feet away, something like that. You're saying where you are in relation to something else. So if Little Red Riding Hood, say, moved another 10 feet this way, you would say Little Red Riding Hood is 20 feet to the left of the tree, or something like that. That's fine and dandy. Sometimes you need a bit more specific, and that's where absolute location comes into hand. When you go and look at absolute location, you're going to give the actual longitude and latitude, which would have how many degrees north and how many degrees west, for instance. Which one's better, you might be asking? Which one do I need? And the answer is it depends. If you go and there's some circumstances where relative location is important, and there's some circumstances where absolute location is important. If I'm going to give you directions to the bathroom, you probably don't want the longitude and latitude. You probably just say, hey, it's down the hall to the right. If I'm going to be launching a missile in a war zone, you might want the absolute location, a little longitude and latitude. So it just matters what the context is. So you got to use your brain a bit. Place. There are 2 parts to place. There are human characteristics and physical characteristics. Some people think with geography it's only stuff that's natural, that Mother Nature made herself or something like that. But it includes places like, yay, everybody's favorite Mickey Mouse, Disneyland. the human characteristics. We go and humans change the environment in some form. They're allowed to do that, and we do that to suit our purposes. So places can have both human characteristics and then physical. People want to say natural. Don't say natural, it's called physical. It's the part of nature. So if you want to think about like physics or something like that from science, if that helps you remember it. Physical, the rivers, the mountains, the streams, the ocean, all that stuff. The stuff that's been here forever. It's not going anywhere. That's the God-made type stuff. So you can either have man-made or God-made if you want to think about it. But the official terms are human characteristics and physical characteristics. Now the three parts to human environmental interactions. Humans can do three types of things with the environment. They can go and they can adapt to the environment, they can modify the environment, and they can depend on the environment. I'm going to explain each of these in more detail. All right, number one, adapt. Humans can go and adapt to the environment if necessary. For instance, if it is hot outside, are you going to wear a big old jacket and a beanie? No, you're going to probably say, I'm going to probably wear sandals, maybe I'll wear some sunscreen, something like that. You are adapting to the environment. Simple enough. Second example, humans modify the environment. They change the environment to fit their needs. Sometimes the environment does stuff that we frankly aren't too happy about. We want to change it. For instance, we can go and we don't like this big river. We can go and build this bridge. Hopefully it connects in the middle. We need electricity. Let's go harness the power of the river to make a hydroelectric dam. So we can modify the environment to fit our purposes. And then the third point is we actually depend upon it. As much as we go and we think we're the masters of the environment, we do depend upon the environment. And Mother Nature ultimately kind of has her will. You think about farming. We depend upon these crops in order to feed. And if there's a drought, we're out of luck in a lot of ways. Yes, we can try to modify it, which is the second point. But we also depend upon the seasons and everything like that. A fire. We don't depend on fires, but they can go and ruin our crops, our way of life. So we are somewhat at mercy of Mother Nature. Don't think that we have everything under control, because we certainly don't. If you watch the news, you definitely know that. Fourth theme is movement. People, goods, and ideas all move. It happens. So over time, we've seen movement increase, and especially in the past 20 years or so with the internet, especially this one, ideas, right? Ideas get around so quickly. Think about Facebook, Twitter, the news, online, everything. And the amount which we could spread people, airplanes, the fact that you can get in an airplane and go to a foreign country and be there in a few hours, you can be in Europe or Asia, is absolutely nuts to people that were living like a century ago. Goods. We can go and get goods from all around the world. And we have a lot of movement, and obviously that's increased over time. Last but not least of our 5 themes are our regions. We have 3 types. We have formal regions, functional regions, and vernacular regions. They all have slightly different definitions. A formal region is defined by a government or a physical characteristic. So an example could be the good old USA, right? We have a government of the United States of America. We also have borders. There's a point where America ends and Canada begins, or our border with Mexico as well. So it's formally defined. The second one is it's functionally defined, which means essentially that it's defined by its function, what people do. So, for example, if I'm a little newspaper delivery boy and I wake up at 3 a.m. every day and I'm going to go deliver my newspaper route to the area, that's my functional region. If my boss says, hey, stop delivering to this neighborhood, it slightly changed, these people canceled their subscriptions, my functional region has just changed. Oaks Christian. The thing about Oaks Christian, yeah, it does have a physical location, but what really makes the school is the people in it. So we go and you have the students and the teachers. Say Oaks Christian had to shut down because of an emergency, fire destroyed the school. Oaks Christian would still exist. It would probably just exist in a different location temporarily. So you'd have like students and teachers, which would still make the school. Last one, vernacular regions, which are based on people's perceptions. An example would be the South, where you could go and say, I'm going to the South. It's not like there's a formal government for it, but there's an area where people say, that is the South. People can actually fight over it. Some people say certain parts are part of the South, but you can't just buy a plane ticket, say, take me to the South, please. You have to say, hey, can you take me to Alabama, Mississippi? It's what people think. Another example is the Middle East. the area of the Middle East. Hey, I'm going to go to the Middle East. You can't buy a plane ticket there, but there's certain areas that we tend to think of when we say this vernacular region. Now, in conclusion, you're going to have to go on the exam and you're going to have to write these out, the 5 themes. And sometimes they make these kind of silly, stupid things, so if you think they're stupid, that's fine. But they may help you remember. And the acronym I've created, maybe you can think of a better one, is Larry picks his mom's roses. So you think about location, place, human environmental interactions, movement, and regions. So it's just kind of, each of those letters represents one of the 5 themes of geography. Come see me if you have any questions, and I'll see you in class. Bye.